Yanimdud, everybody, and welcome to our second session of Sisterhood. It's great to have you here on another sunny Sunday. We're blessed again every time we have these Sisterhood sessions. Before we get started into introducing the workshop, I'd like to run through some very brief housekeeping details. If you have any technical issues at any time, please contact one of us. You can use the chat function or email us on wap@iiuk.org, or you can contact the WAP admin. So when you look at the participants list, you can chat with one of the people that are listed as WAP admin. So that's Feroza or Shaista or Iman Topan or even myself, and we will endeavour to help you out. Please, throughout the session, keep yourselves on mute until it's time for you to be able to contribute and share your ideas. We will be recording the session today, so if you don't want your video or yourself to show up, then please take your video off. But in the main, the video should only just show the people that are speaking. I think that's all and we will also be using Mentee today. So have your phones handy or have another screen handy so that you can go on to Mentimeter in just a moment. So this session, our second Sisterhood session, is called Building Better Bonds in Lockdown. My name, as I said, is Shalina. I'm the National Council member for the Women's Activities Portfolio. And the mission for the portfolio is to support and empower women throughout their lives. And our Sisterhood sessions provides a space to share experiences, to learn from others, especially during lockdown, and to find some support through our women community. Today's session is going to be like a workshop format, so there will be times where you'll be listening to our guest today, as well as joining into discussions and small breakout sessions. So our guest today is Tasneem Virani, and before we go into telling the workshop, I'll tell you a little bit more about her. I've had the pleasure of working with Tasneem Virani on a work basis as well as in a SEBA basis, and I've learned a lot from her in terms of emotional intelligence, and she's really been instrumental in my career development as well. So Tasneem Virani is the founder of Claris Coaching. She's an organizational executive trainer, facilitator and mediator with over 20 years of international experience in human performance and change management. She's a qualified chartered fellow of the CIPD and a fellow of the National College of Psychotherapists. She holds a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in training and performance management. She also has a certificate in emotional intelligence and conversational intelligence and is professionally certified as a mediator with ADR International. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of who Tasneem is and the experience that she'll be bringing with her throughout this session, and you'll hopefully be able to gain so much from this session and the second session. Before we get into the workshop, we have a quick poll that we're going to do. So there will be a Zoom poll that will come up in a moment, as well as a pre-mentee evaluation. So the mentee evaluation is just before the workshop. We'll do an evaluation, and after the workshop to see what you have gained. So if I can ask the team to start putting up whichever one is coming first, if that's okay. So hopefully on your screen you should see a poll now. And it has a couple of questions on there, and we'd just like you to complete that poll. So first question is, are you currently working? The second question is about your living setup, number of people in your household, and whether you live in an apartment or a house. So if I just give you a moment or two to start completing that information. And this information is really to help us out with the workshop and to give us a sense of what your situation is, and how that can be affecting the way that you're experiencing the lockdown. The poll is also anonymous, so it won't show who is completing what. So please feel free to enter that information. Okay, I think we've got 2/3 the filled in the questionnaire. I'll give another couple of seconds and then we'll switch over to Menti. Okay, let's move on to Menti. And there'll be a screen now which will explain to you how to access Menti. Okay, so using your phone or another page on your screen, if you can log into menti.com, so www.menti.com, and then you'll see this screen. So whether you're on your phone or your computer or laptop, you'll see the same screen. And then if you enter this code 224196 into the space and click on submit, you'll be taken to the pre-evaluation questions. I'm going to do that as well, just whilst we're waiting for everybody else to get on. Okay, so you should see 4 questions and you just need to, again, add in your rating of that statement. Once again, everything is anonymous, so it doesn't your name won't show up against any of this information that you're entering. And I'll just wait for my team to let me know when we can get started with the workshop. And whilst we're waiting for the Menti to be completed, we're just showing the sharing the poll results with our host. Okay, so if you just joined, please log into menti.com and fill out the pre-evaluation. That will help us to give some stats on how this workshop has been, whether it's been helpful. Okay, so we'll now move on. So I'll now hand over to Tasneem.
Okay, welcome everyone. Are we in lockdown? Well, the state I saw, London, yesterday was not really in lockdown. Parks were packed, people were on the street. I've never seen so many people walking around, and I'm saying, what happened? Did we just escape from this cave and let ourselves go? There were mad drivers, people on bicycles driving everywhere. So I don't know if you experienced it. Well, so I think the good thing is that from the poll, I can see that we all have a relationship with either children or in an extended family or with our partner. And some of us may be living alone, but they're always relationships. So welcome and thank you, Shalina, for getting me to do this session on building better bonds. So what are we going to learn in this session? We're going to see the value of emotions and how to navigate with them, how emotions have an impact on the way we react. We're going to have some insight into emotional intelligence and tools to support you in cultivating a healthy mindset. It's loaded. In this 1 hour, we're going to touch the surface, but hopefully by the end of it, you will get something that you can work on tangibly and be able to see that underlining every communication or relationship is the emotion. And that's why it's so important for us wants to home in on emotions. And emotions have words. They're called feeling words. So let's just take a look at this. How are you feeling today? Just put this on the chat. How are you feeling today? I've got some words that you can choose from, but there may be other words. Just let me know how you're feeling today. Or how you're feeling within this sudden change that happened. Just write on the chat. Because emotions have feeling words.
So we've got a good mix, Tasneem.
Great.
I don't know if you've been seeing them. So we've got anxious, grateful, content, exhausted, worried, confused, lonely. What else have we got? Some more content, calm just right now. So hopefully you'll get some, this will be a good injection for you of calm and togetherness. Stagnant yet appreciative, loved, frustrated, sometimes feeling sad, lethargic, in a daze, and grateful.
Great. Great. A lot of mixed emotions. Just do one thing more on the chat. This wasn't planned, but I just want to get a sense of what made you join this workshop. What was it? Just some comments. What did you want? You know, why did you join this workshop, and what were the things that enticed you to participate? Just anyone on the chat. So hope what you can get out of it today.
Curiosity, wondering if other people feel the same, to learn to manage relationships in lockdown, connecting with others, better understand connections, a lot on connections, and knowing that others are feeling the same, getting better at building relationships, how to manage feelings, connecting with fellow Ismaili women, being part of the sisterhood. Yeah, generally connections is the biggest one that seems to be coming out right now, and being together, spending quality time with the family, boosting morale, managing my feelings and others, and getting motivated to connect more with the family.
Great. So everything is because we are social beings. We're social beings. How do we connect better? And how do we manage this, the whole process about building relationships? So it's great. We're on the right page here. And thank you again for participating. Now, why do I pay so much importance to emotions? Emotions are your driving engine. They drive every cell of your body. They're like these signals. So it's not about having good emotions or bad emotions. Emotions just are. And it's really important to have emotions because that gives us signals that serves a purpose. So whatever the emotion is, it's good to recognize it, acknowledge it, and let it work for us as assets, because they give us evidence that something needs to happen. So we can't suppress emotions, because if we do, it's just going to make our body sick. It's all about recognizing that there are emotions. And the other thing is that emotions, because they affect us, knowing how to navigate them and look after them. So emotions are not just important in managing relationships, but it's also about having self-compassion, not just compassion for yourself, but also compassion for others. So emotions are really, really important. And the other thing about emotions, they're contagious. So imagine when you're in a bad mood, or somebody's in a bad mood around you, what happens? It spreads. Those of you who have young children know that the minute you are feeling something, and especially feeling something negative, your kids are going to play up more. They're going to push those buttons more because emotions are contagious. And learning how to manage them and build them is part of what we're going to do today. So emotions are really, really important. But emotions are driven from our thoughts and our feelings. So I just want to do a little exercise with you. When you see a dog, this happy dog here, what happens? Where do you feel it? And what sort of emotions do you feel? And imagine that dog is sitting next to you. What reaction would you have? And he's sitting next to you. And he's a big dog, but he's a really happy dog. So what emotions? Feet, and he's just come out. What's happening? What's triggering in you? Just write them on the chat. Write them on the chat. Let's engage with this. And you've just seen a spider on your window or on your table. What emotion is going on there? You see the spider. What does it make you think or feel? Just write that on the chat. Okay. Okay, different, Shalina? Is everyone having different mixed emotions?
Yeah, mixed with the dog, obviously it's a lot more kind of happier type reactions. Some people obviously don't have a fear of spiders, some people do, so there's a mix of that one as well. Okay. Some people feel indifferent, some people don't really like spiders, so there's definitely a marked difference between the dog, the snake and the spider.
So that tells us, what does that tell us? That tells us that all of us have different thoughts that trigger different emotions. Now, our thoughts can come from our belief system, the way we believe about something, our values, through generations growing up in third, fourth, first, second, and third culture. Our own belief systems and value systems change according to generations. I mean, I bet some of you think, oh, how can my kids even think that? How can they even say that? I'm sure you have feelings like that. We all have different thoughts according to our beliefs and values. And sometimes even the different generations will try and preach something to you of something that worked for them. And you'll say, oh, wow, that's preaching. And your mind sort of shuts down and doesn't want to listen to them. Well, that happens in every dynamic. There's a change within the way we grow up, the way we're surrounded by, and our experiences also give us thoughts on the way things. So some of us, if something happens, we can go into a past experience and believe that that's happening before because we're triggered through memory. Our personality also gives us different experiences. And why I focus also on personality, because sometimes we don't understand that people can see things through different lenses, and we just feel that everybody needs to be like us. So you're all sort of swimming together. But the fact of life is that we all are different. We're different in the way we see things. We're different in the way we hear things. And we're different in the way experiences. I mean, you can be in a family of 3 kids, 5 kids, and you can see that all your experiences to the way that you were brought up by your parents have triggered something different. I'm sure this relates to you. I know that growing up, I'm probably more sensitive to some things with the dynamics of my parents, and my sister just laughs at it. How could you even think like that? So we all get triggered differently based on, I would say it's a mixture of nurture and nature. Wouldn't you agree, Shalina? There's a little bit of nature, nurture in us. So it's what we're born with, and then what we experience and how we take things mind. Now, when the situation is, whether it's positive or negative, it responds with an emotion, and that emotion is positive or negative. And that emotion produces a behavior, and that produces a result. Now, this is our automatic response to a situation. So if we look at the human brain, which I'm going to show you a video on later, we have the emotional part of the trigger of the brain happens in a part called the amygdala, which lies between the reptilian and the animal part of the brain. So we all know that animals can be loving, but animals can also be protective. And the same with us. We can be loving and we can be protective. It all depends on how we think. And then the behavior and result. So if we're reacting to situations differently, I want us to think of a particular incident that could have triggered up in your relationship as a result of a lockdown. So I'm going to give you my examples. Now, remember, I may be teaching emotional intelligence and practicing, but I do have my moments too. So during the lockdown, my husband, for instance, he travels a lot. And I don't think we've ever spent, well, we spent 6 weeks at a time, and then he goes away and flies, or 3 weeks at a time. Well, we've been in lockdown, 12 weeks? And probably having to cope with a routine for 12 weeks. One thing that I realized is that I am such a people person, and I love to do things with people. And I was getting triggered. Oh my gosh, I've got to do this alone. Either I've got to be on Zoom, then I've got to do hoovering on my own, then I've got to do the cooking on my own. I just feel alone. I don't have any companionship in this. So I think I didn't even think of it until I triggered. And there was a last trigger when I asked him to do something, and he says, "Not now." And I said, "That's it. Every time I ask you to do something with me, you say not now." And I just flipped. And he just heard me flip, and he started to flip back. So he said, "Why are you getting all out of control? You're the one who teaches this stuff and you don't even practice it." And that even triggered me more, because that was my sort of shame coming out of how can I be doing this if I'm being triggered? What I did immediately, I just took a deep breath. I took a deep breath and I said, hang on a minute. I'm not going to take this personally. I am triggering. What is this really about? So I felt back, and then I asked him. I said, okay, what's really going on here? And he said to me, I'm experiencing the lockdown differently. So then I listened to him. He said, I like to have my space, and I like to think through things on my own. I don't like to be doing all the time. I just need some quiet time, because this has also been a situation that's stressful for all of us. And then I looked at my personality and I thought, actually, it's true. My personality needs people around me. I'm a real groupie person, and he's a personality who likes to process his energy from inside. So he prefers to have that downtime, and I needed to respect it. And I said, I know all this stuff, but I triggered. So this is what happens to your brain. When you're stressed, thoughts and feelings just come up. And you also could get triggered when I remember one incident is when somebody said something to me that was really hurtful on something I did. And I said, oh my God, why did she think that way? How can she even feel that way? I didn't even mean it that way. So then I had to think of how important it is to be mindful and recognize other people's triggers too, but at the same time, not to take it personally. So those are my examples. You're going into breakout session. Think of a particular incident that could have triggered you in a relationship as a result of the lockdown. And what were your thoughts and feelings about this? And very important, where do you feel this in your body? We have patterns. We have patterns. When we're triggered with thoughts, feeling. And the key is to know what those patterns are, when they keep coming up, and where you feel this in your body. I think grief is probably one of the hardest emotion. And I hope the visualization will help when I take you through it, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time. I think what we were focusing on today was very much, yes, there are a lot of emotions that are associated with relationships. When people are far away, when you've lost somebody, or you're feeling alone, or you feel you're missing out on something and missing out on Jamaat Khana. These were all the sort of feel-good factors that you have. And when the emotions build up, I think the key thing to know about emotions is they're there, and I'll take you through an exercise of being aware of them and having that self-compassion, which is really important that you feel. But also, I'm just wondering whether to do the meditation now first before I do the other video, but I think it's good to see the video, because our mind, when you understand a little bit about the neurochemistry that goes on in the brain, it will help you anchor in a little bit that how you have to also have good self-care, because it's really important. We're all going to feel things differently. We're going through different emotions. And the thing is, overthinking, I've just seen that comment, overthinking doesn't help because you go back into past memory. So I think if we see this video now on the way the brain works under stress, it will give you some input. It's only 4 minutes, but it gives you some input on helping to understand how the chemicals work in your mind. And then I'll take you through a meditation and self-care. Because emotions are real, but the intensity and the way they get bigger in your memory makes you panic. And while these are all coming in, I just picked up a quote of Hazrat Ali. And it's so interesting. He said, "Do not let your difficulties fill you with anxiety. After all, it is only in the darkest nights that stars shine more brightly." So when you see the video and you'll see how the chemicals work in your brain and it actually shuts your mind from thinking, you will see that being able to navigate through these emotions, and when I give you some techniques after it, it's really important to open the neurotransmitters of your brain with good chemicals so that you can think straight. Because in darkness, there is light. And if it's all darkness, you feel closed in, right? But in darkness, there's always light. Okay? So I'm going to share this video with you.
Unfortunately, stress is going up and it's continuing to go up. Research over the last 30 years says stress has gone up around 25, 30%. And there are all kinds of effects from this increasing stress. But I want to talk about what happens in your brain. There's a little almond-shaped organelle in your brain called your amygdala. And it's where you store your stress reaction patterns, your threat response patterns. And when you perceive something as threat, and it's important, this word perceive, doesn't mean it actually is a threat. You perceive something as a threat, there's a little part of your brain called the thalamus that's monitoring the traffic through your brain. And when your brain decides, okay, this is a threat, it activates the amygdala. And there's a direct link between the thalamus and the amygdala. So there's a very quick activation. Neuroscientist Joe Ledoux called it the back alley. This is just connection to activate the amygdala. And it's really important to be able to respond quickly to threats. But the problem is, as we become more stressed, that system becomes more sensitive. And as stress is going up, we're more and more likely to perceive things as threats. And we're actually probably missing the data, because we're filtering it through this heightened stress response, we're not as accurate in our perceptions, and we're seeing more and more things as a threat. The amygdala kicks in, it floods our brain with these neurohormones related to stress. Our muscles react faster, our blood flow concentrates in our trunk. We get ready to fight, flee, and freeze. Our reproductive system shuts down, our long-term immunity shuts down, our higher order or creative thinking shuts down, our digestive system shuts down. We move into this state where is fight with the enemy, or hide, or run away. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, the issues that I face most days, those three options aren't really going to be a good solution. The issues that I face most days are going to require a lot of creative and critical thinking. They're going to require a lot of reflective and listening and problem solving. But when we're in this threat response system, all of that part of our brain is shut down. Our social perceptions are shut down. Our reflectiveness is shut down because our brains love efficiency. And in order to be efficient, we turn everything else off to dedicate the resources to survive in this moment of danger. But what if it's not really a moment of danger? Remember, the perception of threat is what's triggering this reaction. And so one of the things that we have to do is to teach ourselves that discomfort, that the chaos that we're in, that the complexity that we're in, it is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous.
Okay, I need to get out of this. Sorry, I just need to move the slide. Okay, so when we are in a form of crisis in our head, when something is in the head as a form of crisis, our automatic response is to either fight, flight, freeze, or appease. But coming up with the scenarios that came up through your breakouts, it's not all to do with the relationships, although some are. I think it's to do with the relationships. Also, you're experiencing different emotions during the lockdown. Now, having emotions are important, like I said, but building them up to intensity will cloud your ability to think because you release cortisol. So we almost need to change our thought. I know and I know this was not part of it but a lot of the grief things came up. But you know, when we have our 40 days of prayers and we pray more, we start feeling better because that releases different chemicals in our brain. It releases the oxytocin in our brain so that they are neurotransmitters that open our brain so we can think straight. We start thinking of happy memories. We start thinking of positive things. Even in relationships, if you focus your mind on all the negative aspects of things, you can't see clearly because the cortisol floods in. So it's really important to start seeing the positives. I know we all talk about positive thinking, but it's actually homing in on the positive things and seeing something differently. So I think I'm going to take you, I want you to understand first, well, first I wanted, if you look at that video, the key is to develop emotional intelligence. It's almost the bridge between the reactive brain and the human brain. So if you think of a bridge we need, where the reactive brain is the one that sort of takes you down that rabbit hole, and the human brain is the one that's critical thinking, creative, can build you out of situations. Emotional intelligence is the bridge. And developing emotional intelligence is to be able to carry on even if there are frustrations, to be able to control our impulses and regulate our moods so that the distress one feels does not cloud our ability to think, and to be able to recognize how another person thinks and feels and see situations from different perspectives. So part of building emotional intelligence is to increase your self-awareness and awareness of others. Build on your emotional literacy. Write down your emotions. Remember their data and their evidence at something. Even if you're fearful, work out plan B. Don't let fear turn into terror because you're thinking. I'm fearful about something. There's an emotion coming up. What is my plan in this situation? And think of it that way and recognize your patterns. Patterns are really important. They are patterns on the way you think about yourself. They're patterns about the way you feel about yourself. They're patterns about yourself. You are your own judge of you. So know yourself better. As we're building emotional intelligence, always look at the bigger picture in mind. And when you look at the bigger picture in mind, you look at how to increase empathy. Empathy is seeing such situation from another person's perspective. We're all one. And sometimes we forget to see it from their perspective. Even the plants have a perspective on the way they want to grow and the way they want to be. Start becoming more self-aware. And even the person who you're having in a relationship with, they have a point of view. They have a difference. And how do we learn to listen and navigate through our emotions? Another thing we need is to increase our self-care. Just like I did this exercise with you now, I pumped some chemicals into your brain. But it's important to pump these chemicals regularly. So when there's a crisis, you have ammunition. You don't have to be overstressed. Praying regularly increases oxytocin in your brain. Volunteering increases oxytocin. It's all part of the parasympathetic nervous system. Showing acts of kindness, being grateful. Being grateful is now being proven to increase serotonin in your brain. You know, when we take the shukr tasbih, it's so powerful when we do it with gratitude. You'll see the change in you. But these are practices you do regularly to to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, all good practices. And what I love about what's happening now in the lockdown, the institutions have put out so many good videos and practices and tips. When I look at what the health board is doing and all the other institutions, even what education is doing now, it's all giving you good ways to reflect and become more self-aware. Even the viruses have been amazing. So I think we're very fortunate to be able to stimulate those good chemicals and know, like every crisis in life, doesn't it always pass? It always passes. Nothing stays the same. It always passes because change is part of human existence. It's constant. So don't get stuck, move, and move with good tools. Your homework before the next session is practice acknowledging your own emotions. Increase your self-compassion and also those of others before they escalate. You're in a conversation, don't think it's all about you when you're triggered. There's another person in it and try and acknowledge them and what they could be feeling. Write down when you're triggered or write down your patterns, your own patterns and how you react and what you say. And notice how the other person reacts in situations. We're spending more time with our family, some of us, or even if you're not, pick up the phone and connect with somebody that you haven't connected with for a long time. Get to know people again. And those are people that give you good feelings. I know people are very sensitive, and we will talk about this next session, is very much on how language is important, that when you are building relationships. Because language can trigger people to go closer to them or away from them. And we're going to focus a lot on that next session. So what is next session about? We will explore how different actions and behaviors give different results. We're going to see the importance of listening with empathy and compassion, not only to ourselves, but also to the other. We will explore how language and what we say can have different outcomes. And we're going to think of ways we can communicate more effectively to build better bonds. Shalina, do you want to take over?
Lovely. Thank you, Tasneem. And I think I had quite a turbulent morning today, so I feel a lot less tension in my head. So thank you. That meditation really helped, and it's also really helped again to hear from everybody and for everyone to share in their experiences and what challenges they're having and the emotions that they're going through. Because I think right now it is very easy to feel that it's just you on your own. You're the only one that's going through this. But when we connect with others, we can all experience that it's collectively we're all going through different challenges. So thank you everyone for opening up and sharing. So there's a couple of things that will happen now. We'll do our event survey, which is open again. So for those of you that accessed it earlier, and if you didn't get to do it, please do now. If you log into www.menti.com, this information is really helpful for us to understand how we've helped or what else we can do to help you. And enter in the number 224196. And you'll be directed immediately to the event survey. I know that there's some of the breakout sessions and throughout hearing the things, especially around emotions and what we're feeling, has triggered quite a few people. So if you would like somebody to discuss with you afterwards what you're experiencing, we do have access to professional coaches and people who would be willing to talk to you as well. So please email us on wap@iiuk.org, or you can message me privately or your facilitator privately if you would like someone to reach out to you. We're happy to help you out in that way. So please also take that time. We will also email you after the session. We'll email you the homework details. We'll also share with you some of the links that have been shared on the chat. And any other information that we think would be relevant for you to have. So watch out for that email. We might also send out the post-event survey if we don't get enough people to complete now. If you don't get a chance, then that can be on your email as well. So hopefully we're getting some people completing the email as well. Yeah, and if there is anything else that anybody wants to share, please share on chat. Our next session will be on Sunday, the 14th of June at 2 p.m. So your homework, do as much as you can. Some days you might not be able to keep that diary. Some other days you will be really in it and you really want to keep that diary. So capture as much as you can, ready for the next session.
Shalina, I can't do the 4th of June.
14th.
Oh, 14th. Phew. Okay. All right.
Don't worry. We've already cleared your diary with you, so we're good. And just to let you know that you'll get, you will receive the details for Zoom in a couple of days. And if you haven't registered, you can register at the link shown on the screen, which I believe will be coming up. Otherwise, you can just email us to do that. We're happy if anybody would like to stay on, if you want to ask any questions directly now to Tasneem as well. If you want to stay on, we're happy to do that. Tasneem, is that okay for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So happy for you to either come off mute or to use the chat function, which actually that might be easier. Use the chat function, otherwise we might have everybody trying to ask a question at the same time. So if you do have a question that you would like to post to Tasneem right now, please use the chat and I'll be able to pick it up. But if you've got to drop off, thank you so much for joining us. I think we had 76 in total of us join on. So really great to see that lots of people want to have this kind of a topic and to be able to discuss and connect with each other. And sorry, Tasneem, also thank you for joining us today as well.
You know, having a session with a group like this, I don't know, I feel connected. Maybe it's
Same.
because all is smileys, I'm not sure, but I really feel, it's almost like I'm picking everybody's energy, even through the Zoom, which is, there's still some neuron. Maybe because we're all connected spiritually.
Yeah, very true.
It is, but there is a connection. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do this.
And
for the non-smiley spouses as well, I feel that too. I have a non-smiley spouse. I mean, it's non-smiley daughter-in-law. So I meant everybody who's connected to the family. So it's not just the smileys, but everybody who's connected to the family.
And someone's asked about the recording. The recording will go up, so it has to go through a process of being cleared through the comms team. But it will be available on the YouTube channel at some point. We're happy to again send an email out to let you know when that's available, so you can rewatch. But we will share the video link that Tasneem showed us, so you've got access to that. You can watch that again. Just check if there's a question. So Tasneem, can you answer around whether it's normal to feel more sensitive or more aware of our thoughts at this time?
Absolutely. And it's look, you've had more time, and it's good to reflect. The point is, you can be more sensitive. Like I told you, I was sensitive. Why? Because they're unconscious stress that you're dealing with. There are going to be unconscious stress, but it's important to identify and unpack it. Don't let it percolate. Because when you let it percolate, it gets bigger and bigger, and then your imagination wanders.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very normal, and it's normal to have all feelings, anger, fear, or all emotions. But it's the way we manage it and navigate through that is important. That's the key.
Another question, how would you suggest that people become more aware of their feelings and sensations in the body?
Okay, it's a tricky, a lot of us grew up not with this emotional literacy. We grew up with trying to be tough. When we had emotions, somebody said, oh, don't worry, you'll get over it. But we all feel things. We have 6 brains. We have a heart brain and we have a gut brain. So everything works together. So you're going to, it's about now just when you're feeling an emotion, stop for a minute, take a few deep breaths and ask yourself, where are you feeling it most? Are you feeling it in your stomach? Are you feeling it in your chest? And I have different emotions in different parts of my body. So when I'm feeling something like I've let somebody down, it comes in my stomach. But if I feel something that is personal, like I'm not being valued or respected, it comes in my heart. It's interesting. I don't know, the body and the mind work together, and now we got to get the spirit to work with it. I hope that
it takes practice as well, Tasneem, right? Because I think that's something I struggled with a lot at the beginning.
Everything takes practice, That's why I love this Hazrat Ali quote, that do not let difficulties fill you with anxiety. After all, it's only in the darkest nights that stars shine more brightly. You do have moments. Nobody has a stress-free life, but knowing how to see it and work through it is important. Yeah. It's the meaning of life.
Yeah, totally.
The meaning of life. And know that you're not alone. This is part of, I like, I think Amira has brought it up about Katrina Neff's work. It's very important. It's all on self-compassion.
That's a big thing, right? And I know you mentioned that before about the self-compassion, that it's okay that we might not be happy with our triggers, but it's okay that we're getting triggered. Like, we should just accept that that's happening.
Exactly. And patterns come from our childhood. But that's okay. Don't dwell into them. Know that you have this amazing human mind and just let go of them. Acknowledge them and move with them. she talks about two things. One is about shame and about guilt. And shame is what we say to ourselves. I mean, Amira, we could do a session together on this if you want. But shame is, what you say to yourself, and guilt is what you put on yourself, or other people, you think other people put. So you've got an internal and an outer factor.
Yeah.
So it's moving through it.
Got two more questions, Tasneem. So one is, how do we deal with being too oversensitive, as this allows the emotions to hijack me?
That's great. Everyone is quite different, but again, self-care is really important. Self-care of the things that I said will simulate the parasympathetic nervous system, so you're not too oversensitive. And some people are more naturally oversensitive to things, but you may be a person who, because you're oversensitive, need a coach to just vent, who's not going to judge you. People say that, why do we need, if I have a coach, something's wrong with me. Absolutely not. Everybody needs a coach. But sometimes you need somebody independent who's just going to ask you questions to help you move through that. Because the more you unpack what you're sensitive are, the more you're able to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then the hijack is less.
Yeah. And then one more question. Sorry, let me just go back down. When you yourself are a positive and generally happy person, how do you deal with being affected by and made constantly anxious by a person around you who is constantly negative by nature?
I can relate with that very quickly. I mean, I can relate to that quite well because I'm a complete optimist. But I think what I have learned is that it's important to acknowledge that they're thinking that way. And I start feeding questions of positiveness into that person. Okay, is there another way to look at this? I know you're feeling the pain and you see this. And then they say to you, this is reality. You're living not in reality. I bet you've heard that before. And I think the thing is to say, yeah, okay, but try and infuse some positive things in that person. Of ways to look at things. Because some people are more negative because it's not only nature, but it comes from their experiences, it comes from their habits, it comes from their life, but they can move through it. And I have, I've coached many people throughout my lifetime, and I would say quite confidently that I've moved many negative people.
And Tasneem, in the 6 seconds model, in the 6 seconds model that you use, it also talks about being aware of what other people are doing. So your self-compassion that you're having for yourself, extending that to the other person as well.
Exactly. And, it's like, I can see that you see it that way. It's really, we have a habit of wanting to be right. But if we are in a situation, everyone has got a point of view. And it's how do you really listen to the other person's point of view? And not judge. And we'll talk about that a lot in the next session. We're going to look at that, how judging and being critical really puts people's defenses up. And, people do have different histories. And negative can mean so many things. But I think the more you dwell into it, the key is to move the emotion. Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, but they will never forget the way you make them feel. And that's key. If you're building, respect other people for having their emotion. Don't put the label on them. But try and get them to move to make them feel.
Yeah.
It's respecting everyone. But I do also believe that, now that I've done a lot of work with the neuroscience of the brain, that if pessimism causes the cortisol to react more, it will shut the brain from being more creative.
Yeah.
Although I'm just looking at Cummings lately. He's a master pessimist, and I'm thinking, but he does bring creativity. So I don't know. We'll have to analyze that a little bit more.
And we'll take one last question, Tasneem, and then we'll bring the session to a close. How do you deal with people whose values you don't share, but have to spend time with them? And is avoiding people who trigger negative emotions in you a good strategy? So it's linked together.
Okay, so there are two double-loaded questions.
Yeah.
One is that we can all have different values. We can have different values even in our children growing up. And I think the key thing is to respect it. If you want to build a relationship, respect where each person is coming from. Don't try and impose your situation on them, because when you do, you only lose the battle. But if you begin to respect, it does help. I don't know if anyone has seen the webinar I did for NCAB. Maybe you can send the link to them.
Yeah.
Because that shows that it shows about the neuroscience of the brain, but it also gives you a formula on how to deal with difficult conversations.
Okay.
With a dispute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it, you know, and when you're being triggered by people who trigger negative emotions and you're not ready for it, stay away. But build your capacity. Build your capacity of resilience, because it's really important that you don't become a victim of somebody else's emotions. Because when you become a victim of somebody else's emotions, imagine you lose balance. You can lose balance immediately. So again, the self-care and regular self-care is really important. You know, devote yourself to 3 hours of self-care in any form. Whether it's prayer, meditation, exercise, focus on self-care. Very, very important.
And I guess for those of us that might be struggling with family and homeschooling as well, it's whatever time you can find, right? So, and it might be split throughout the day, but even if it's 5-10 minutes that you're just focusing on yourself throughout the day.
5-10 minutes. Meditation in the morning.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's so still in the morning. And even if you do 10 minutes, you're right, Shalina.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you for staying with us. Note that if there are questions that come up, Tasneem, would this be a good idea also if there are questions that come up whilst people are thinking through the homework and over the next 2 weeks, for them to capture those and share those?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and we can see what else we can bring to the next session. So thank you all very much for joining us.
I think.
Go on.
And I just want to share one thing, that the life of building emotional intelligence does not happen in one day. It takes practice and it's a lifetime, but the human capacity to build that is incredible. And we're seeing that emotional intelligence is a predictor for happiness and success today on all levels. So, you know, getting to know your emotions, learning how to navigate them, using consequential thinking, trying to clear those in your head, watching when the cortisol rushes in your head. You know, it's like when you go and weigh yourself, you weigh yourself because you don't want to put on weight, right? Some of us, you don't want to put on weight, so you weigh yourself every week. And then when you put on weight, what do? You start cutting back. The same thing, when you recognize you're having a cortisol rush in your brain and you're getting very reactive to everything, what does that tell you? More self-care is needed. So just say, okay, I need to regroup. I need to do more self-care. It's another practice. Thank you.
Thanks, Tasneem. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for joining with us and for staying on for the extension of our session today. I hope you have a lovely rest of the afternoon for Sunday. Enjoy some sunshine, soak in a bit of sunshine whilst you're wherever you can. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.